The first delivery. Ravi never liked night shifts. Delhi, after dark, had a different feel to it. The roads were quieter, the lights seemed duller, and the silence held things that daylight kept at bay. But the money was good, and money was what Ravi needed. He had only recently started delivering for a popular food app. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep his rent covered and a few notes tucked under his mattress. That Thursday night had been uneventful until 11:42 p.m. when his phone buzzed with a new order: 1 packet milk, 1 loaf bread, from apartment 3B, Ashoka Residency. Weirdly basic, Ravi muttered, accepting it. Who orders just this at midnight? He arrived at Ashoka Residency around 12:10 a.m. The society was old, built in the early 90s. It had the usual tired look, cracked walls, flickering street lamps, and too many stories buried in the cement. As Ravi unhooked his helmet, the watchman, an old man wrapped in a dusty shawl, looked up from his small heater and said, "Don't deliver to 3B by. That flat's been locked." For 5 years, Ravi raised a brow. "I have an order." "Check yourself." The old man shook his head, eyes narrowed. "That flat, it's not empty." "But no one should go there." Ravi laughed nervously. "Sir, I get paid to drop food, not to bait ghosts." He walked past. The watchman didn't stop him again, but muttered something in Hindi under his breath that Ravi didn't catch. The elevator worked. Surprisingly, a dull humming cage of metal that creaked every time it moved. Ravi reached the 3rd floor, where the hallway stretched out like a forgotten corridor in a hospital. Yellowed lights, peeling wallpaper, and thick, unnatural silence. Apartment 3B stood at the far end. As he approached, Ravi noticed something strange. The air was colder, not air-conditioned cold, but unnatural, like walking into a freezer with no motor sound. And then he saw the door, slightly ajar. Before he could knock, a voice whispered from inside, "Come in, you're late." He froze. His phone pinned. Tip received, 300. Ravi blinked. His heart beat louder now. He stepped closer, trying to peer in. The smell hit him first, a thick, rotting stench, like spoiled meat and damp wood. Against his better judgment, he pushed the door. Opened with 2 fingers. The lights were on but dim. The apartment looked lived in, but old, like it had been frozen in time. Dust hung in the air. Newspapers from 2018 lay scattered near the door. On a wall, a family photo: a man, a woman in a red sari, and a little girl. In the living room, facing the window, sat a woman in a wheelchair, her back to him. Long gray hair, perfectly combed, trailed over the chair's back. "I've been hungry for so long. She said softly. Ravi cleared his throat. "Ma'am, your order, milk and bread?" He placed the bag on a table and took a cautious step back. The woman didn't move. Then the door behind him slammed shut. Ravi jumped. He turned around, yanked the handle. It wouldn't budge. Panic started clawing up his throat. The woman turned slowly. No eyes. No nose. No real face. Just a sheet of smooth skin, stretched tightly, and a mouth sewn into a grotesque smile. Ravi stumbled backward, knocking over a stool. The woman tilted her head, cracking noises coming from her neck. "Thank you," she whispered. The lights flickered. Every bulb in the house blinked rapidly as the apartment seemed to breathe. Ravi kicked the door, hard, again and again. A sound echoed. From the hallway, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy. Ravi turned and saw something from the corner of his eye. Through a nearby mirror, a tall, faceless man with long arms, standing just behind him. But when he spun around, no one was there. The woman began laughing, a soft, wheezing, choking laugh that echoed unnaturally. "She's awake now. She's awake now. Ravi ran toward the kitchen. He needed a weapon. A phone signal, anything. But there was nothing modern. No appliances. No switches that worked. Then he saw a door leading to the balcony. He burst through it and found himself standing in a dark hallway again. The same hallway, same wallpaper, same 3B door in front of him. He hadn't left. He backed away, trying to comprehend what had just happened. The delivery bag was back on his shoulder, untouched, everything reset. Suddenly, the door to 3B opened once more. The woman in the wheelchair was back in position. "Come in, you're late," Ravi screamed. This time he ran. Down the stairs, all 3 floors. Out the gate. The night was quiet again. Too quiet. The watchman looked up. "You didn't go up, did you?" Ravi's mouth was dry. He nodded slowly. Who was that?" The watchman looked into the distance, then said, "Family died there in a gas explosion, all 3. That lady, she kept ordering food the week before. Milk and bread. Every night." Ravi swallowed hard. "But she spoke to me." "That? Flat sealed," the old man said. "Locked tight. If the door opened, someone let her out." 2 nights later, Ravi got another ping, 11:42 p.m. milk, bread. Apartment 3B. This time, he declined, but the app glitched and auto-accepted. And the last thing Ravi saw before his phone died was the delivery status. Order delivered. He never touched the app again. But sometimes, at 11:42 p.m., his old phone lights up by itself and pings. Missing tip Jared had grown used to the quiet loneliness of Chicago's night shift deliveries. The streets were usually empty, the city's noise tucked away like a secret beneath the hum of distant traffic. Tonight was no different, except for one notification that made his heart race a little faster. The app pinged with a special request, an order that needed hand delivery to apartment 3B in Westlake Apartments. The $50 tip was unusually generous, far above what he normally saw for a late-night drop-off. That alone made Jared hesitate. He'd been warned before. Mr. Kale, the old doorman who seemed to know everything about the building and its residents, had muttered something strange last week. "Don't go to 3B, it's a code, kid. Just skip it." Jared never fully understood what that meant. Tonight, with the tempting tip blinking on his screen, he pushed the warning aside. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it was something else. But the money was too good to pass up. He arrived at Westlake just after midnight. The building looked almost normal under the weak glow of the street lamps, old bricks worn by time. A few flickering lights in the lobby. No sign of Mr. Kale at the front desk. Jared stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the 3rd floor. The elevator's metal doors clanged shut with a tired groan, and the ride upward felt slow, like the air inside was thickening. When the doors opened, a narrow hallway stretched out in front of him, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent tubes. The smell was stale, a mix of dust and something older, decaying. Jared's footsteps echoed as he walked toward 3B. The door stood out immediately. Unlike the other doors, which were relatively intact, this one was scratched deeply, like something with claws had tried to tear it down. The scratches looked fresh, darkened by grime, but unmistakable in their violent pattern. Jared's throat tightened. He remembered Mr. Kale's warning, but the promise of a big tip pushed him onward. He knocked sharply. Silence. Then the door creaked open by itself. Jared froze. The apartment was dark inside, but pale moonlight spilled through a cracked window, illuminating the room in ghostly silver. The place was eerie, untouched but abandoned. The floor was covered in a fine layer of dust, and plastic sheets draped over the furniture as if someone had tried to protect the belongings from dust or decay. Everything felt staged, like the apartment was on the market and no one had lived here for years. No personal effects, no warmth, just silence. Suddenly, a voice broke the stillness from the bedroom down the hall. It was weak but clear. "You brought the sushi?" Jared's heart jumped. The voice was human, but it sounded hollow, dry, like a whisper on the edge of consciousness. He swallowed hard and moved toward the bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. Inside, the room was just as empty as the rest of the apartment, except for one disturbing sight. A man lay on the floor, his skin pale and translucent, almost glowing in the dim light. His eyes were wide open and unnervingly bulging, as if frozen in a state of shock or pain. Thin wires were attached to his neck and wrists, trailing to a cluster of medical monitors on the floor, all silent except for the occasional beep that felt too slow, too deliberate. The man's cracked lips moved, barely audible. "She feeds off kindness," he whispered, voice trembling. "You should have kept driving." Before Jared could respond, the door slammed shut behind him with a force that shook the walls. The fluorescent lights blinked, and then died, plunging the room into darkness so complete it felt like swallowing him whole. Panic surged as he fumbled for his phone, the only source of light in the oppressive blackness. Then, a shadow moved. Something crawled out from under the bed, slow and deliberate, the sound of its movement wet and slick against the floor. Jared's breath caught as the shadow whispered in a voice like dry leaves rustling, "I'm still hungry." His instincts screamed to run, to escape, but the door wouldn't budge. It was as if the apartment itself had become a trap, holding him in place. Outside, the world carried on unaware. Jared's phone showed the order as completed, the generous tip already credited to his account. But Jared? No one ever saw him again. Jared's fingers trembled as he fumbled to turn on his phone's flashlight, the weak glow barely piercing the thick darkness that had swallowed the apartment. The sudden silence was suffocating, broken only by the faint, irregular beeping of the monitors near the man's pale, motionless body. Jared's heartbeat hammered in his ears as the shadow under the bed shifted again. The slow scraping sound like fingernails dragged across concrete. He wanted to call for help, to scream, but his voice caught in his throat. The air grew colder, the damp chill creeping into his bones like icy fingers. Something unspoken hovered just beyond sight, an ancient hunger that clawed at the edges of his mind. The man on the floor suddenly opened his mouth wider, eyes glassy and unfocused, whispering again, "She's always hungry. The more kindness you give, the stronger she grows." Jared's skin crawled. "You should have left the tip, not come here." The voice didn't belong solely to the man. It echoed off the walls, a chorus of whispers growing louder, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Jared stumbled backward, knocking against the plastic-covered furniture, the rustling sound sharp and unnatural in the quiet. The apartment felt alive, breathing, watching, waiting. Then the lights flickered violently and exploded into darkness. Jared was plunged into a void. His phone slipped from his grasp, clattering on the floor and shattering the silence with a harsh ring before dying in the pitch black. The whispering grew urgent, desperate. Something brushed against his ankle, soft, cold, like rotting skin. He spun around blindly, searching, but saw nothing. Kindness. The voice breathed, closer now, right behind him. Panic ignited, and Jared lunged for the door. It didn't budge. No matter how he pushed, the wood held firm, trapping him in this hollow shell of an apartment. His breath came in ragged gasps as unseen hands seemed to brush his arms, chilling and clammy. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl rumbled from beneath the floorboards, vibrating through Jared's feet. The shadow moved again, sliding along the edges of the room like liquid darkness, circling, hunting. The whispered phrase repeated over and over in a twisted lullaby, "Feed me. Feed me." Jared's mind screamed for an escape, but his body was rooted in terror. The hollow-eyed man's words echoed, "She feeds on kindness, but only when you're trapped." Memories flooded Jared's mind, the kindness he had shown that day, the smile he gave a homeless man, the tip he shared with a fellow delivery driver. Now that kindness felt like a curse, a beacon in the darkness calling her to him. Desperation broke through his paralysis. Jared clawed at the plastic covers, tearing them free to find something, anything, to defend himself. His hands brushed a shard of broken glass. Gripping it, he waited, eyes wide in the darkness. The shadow lunged suddenly, a grotesque figure emerging from the floorboards, its form shifting between human and something else entirely. Its face was a hollow mask of hunger, with too many teeth and eyes that burned like dying embers. Its hands reached out, fingers stretching impossibly long. Jared screamed, slashing wildly with the glass, but the creature dissolved into smoke and vanished. The lights flickered back on suddenly. Jared was alone again, the pale man still on the floor, now completely still. The door creaked open slowly, as if inviting him out. Jared didn't hesitate. He stumbled into the hallway, which was now brightly lit and empty. The scratch marks on the door were gone. His phone buzzed. The order showed completed, the $50 tip deposited. But Jared knew something had followed him out. He could feel it, a cold presence lingering just beyond the threshold of reality, waiting for the next act of kindness to feed on. Ashwin had grown used to the humdrum rhythm of Mumbai nights. Delivering food to dozens of apartments was part of the daily grind, street noise replaced by the occasional honking, the smell of damp concrete after monsoon rains, and the flickering sodium lights that illuminated narrow alleyways. Tonight was no different, except for the late notification. Apartment 3B, Rosewood Heights. Ashwin frowned slightly. Rosewood Heights was a familiar building. He'd delivered there many times before. But something felt off as soon as he showed his order ID to the security guard at the gate. The guard's hand froze on the keypad. His eyes darkened with unease as he leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "There's number 3B, sir." Ashwin blinked, pulling out his phone. The app showed the same. 3B, third floor, unit number locked in. That's what the app says. The guard sighed heavily, looking around as if afraid the walls might overhear. There used to be, but after the fire 5 years ago, nobody survived. The whole floor got sealed off. They removed it from all records. Building management doesn't even acknowledge it anymore. Ashwin felt a chill despite the sticky Mumbai heat. Fires were not uncommon in old buildings, but the severity, a whole floor sealed off, was something new to him. "So you're saying this order can't be delivered?" "Exactly. Just skip it, okay? It's bad news." But Ashwin had never been one to back down from a challenge. The extra tip on this order made it tempting, and deep down, a nagging curiosity twisted in his gut. What was really behind that sealed door? A fire that had claimed a family? Ashwin had a family. 2. How could a home disappear like that? He took the elevator up, feeling the hum of the machinery beneath his feet. The third floor greeted him with a silence so complete it was almost unnatural. The usual smells of cooking and chatter were gone. Instead, a stale scent of burnt wood and ash lingered in the air, faint but unmistakable. The hallway was narrow, lined with doors in various states of repair. 3A was neat, lights on inside. 3C had laundry drying on the balcony. But 3B, there it was, just as the app said. Right in the middle, the door was new, freshly painted a clean cream white. No scorch marks or soot, as one might expect if a fire had ravaged the unit. This contradiction made Ashwin pause. Something was wrong. He knocked softly. A child's voice floated from inside. "Mommy's sleeping. Just leave it outside." Ashwin crouched to set down the bag, his hands shaking slightly despite himself. Suddenly, the door unlatched and creaked open. A small boy peeked out, smiling. Gently. "Thanks," the boy said, eyes wide and unblinking. Ashwin's gaze caught the boy's skin. It looked wrong. charred, melted in places, yet somehow still alive. The smile was eerie, unnatural, as if stitched onto a broken face. The boy whispered, "Want to see Mommy too?" Before pulling the door open wider. Inside, the air turned heavy with smoke and something fouler, the scent of burning flesh and charred wood. Ashwin's throat constricted as he stepped inside. The apartment was a ruin, walls blackened, floor covered in ashes that floated gently like dust motes caught in stray beams of moonlight. In the center of the room was a bed, and on it, a figure writhed in flames. The person was on fire, but the flames didn't consume. They licked and twisted around the body, which twitched and moaned in a horrifying symphony of pain and defiance. Ashwin's stomach turned. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. His feet felt glued to the ash-covered floor. "Run," the boy's voice hissed, cold and distant now. Ashwin didn't hesitate. He turned and bolted down the hall, the acrid smoke burning his lungs. Behind him, the child's laughter echoed, hollow and broken. When morning came, Ashwin found himself back at Rosewood Heights. The security guard was waiting. Ashwin asked about 3B, and the guard shook his head, gesturing toward a blackened wall bricked up where 3B had once stood. "Don't go near it," the guard warned. "It's not an apartment anymore. It's a tomb." Ashwin's nightmares began that night. Ashes on his skin, a boy's smile that wasn't quite human, and the image of a woman burning but never dying, trapped forever in the flames of a home that no longer existed. Ashwin's legs trembled as he forced himself to descend the building. Stairs, his breath ragged and lungs burning from the thick, choking smoke that seemed to cling to him like a second skin. Every step echoed louder than it should, the oppressive silence of Rosewood Heights, broken only by the distant drip of water somewhere deep in the building. He could still hear the boy's voice in his mind, soft, chilling, and insistent. "Want to see Mommy too?" The words replayed over and over, twisting into a cruel mockery. He didn't stop running until he burst through the front doors into the humid Mumbai night, gasping for fresh air as though he'd been underwater for hours. The city's noise was a shock after the dead quiet upstairs, honking horns, the distant chatter of street vendors, and the distant call of a muezzin from a nearby mosque. But no matter how much he tried to shake it, the image burned into his mind wouldn't fade. The boy's melted skin, the unnatural smile, and the woman on the bed, flames dancing over her but never consuming. Her mouth opened in a silent scream, eyes wide with agony, but somehow she was still alive. Still trapped. He wiped sweat from his brow and tried to steady his shaking hands. How could such a place exist, hidden right in the heart of the city? He needed answers. The next day, Ashwin found himself back at the guard's booth. The man, a grizzled veteran of the building who had seen more than his fair share of tragedies, was waiting for him. "I told you not to go near it," the guard said gruffly. "That fire was bad, worse than most. 3 families lived there, but only ash remained. The building management sealed off that whole section after the fire. They didn't want to deal with the paperwork or the questions." Ashwin nodded, though every instinct told him to stay far away. Yet, he couldn't stop thinking about the boy's invitation and the woman's tortured face. "Some say the souls never left," the guard added. "They say at night you can hear children laughing in that hallway, doors open and close by themselves. Sometimes the smell of smoke drifts down, even when the fire was years ago." Ashwin shivered. He'd felt that smell, dry, smoky, and sickly sweet, clinging to his skin long after he left. That night, Ashwin couldn't sleep. Every creak and groan of his small apartment felt magnified, like the building itself was trying to whisper warnings. His phone buzzed with messages, the delivery app confirming his drop-off, but the tip never came through. A glitch, maybe. Or something else. Hours later, a strange sound woke him. At first, he thought it was the wind, but the rhythmic tapping grew clearer. A soft, childlike tapping on his window. Ashwin's heart pounded. He pulled back the curtain. No one was there. Only darkness. The tapping continued, moving slowly down the glass as if tiny fingers were tracing a path. He wanted to scream, but his voice caught in his throat when he finally dared to look away. The room was cold. The smoke smell was back, faint but unmistakable. Ashwin turned on every light, but the shadows in the corners seemed to lengthen, curling like smoke tendrils reaching for him. Days passed, but Ashwin's life became a waking nightmare. The nightmares from Rosewood Heights followed him, flames licking at his skin, a burned child's smile, and that endless invitation to see mommy. On his deliveries, he avoided the building. Yet, every time he passed by, he felt eyes on him. Whispers in the hallways. Footsteps when no one was around. One night, exhausted and desperate, he returned to the spot where 3B once stood. The blackened wall loomed like a tombstone. Ashwin pressed his palm against the rough bricks, and a sudden coldness shot through his body. Then the wall seemed to shift. A faint glow pulsed behind the bricks, like embers smoldering deep inside. A voice, soft and broken, whispered from the darkness, "Come back. We're waiting." Ashwin stumbled back, gasping. The guard caught him, eyes wide with fear. "You're not the first," he said quietly. "Others have heard it too. But if you go back, they'll take you. The fire never really died. It feeds on those who come close. The burned, the lost, the trapped." Ashwin never returned to Rosewood Heights after that night. But sometimes, when the Mumbai winds howl through his window, he swears he hears a child's laughter and the soft crackle of fire. And deep inside he knows that somewhere in that sealed apartment, the family waits, trapped in flames, hungry for company.